done some academic work at the University of Auckland in the law faculty there. And it was in that area of study that I became particularly interested in and focused on the welfare and rights of animals. I've always found it astonishing that people need proof that animals suffer pain, and particularly interesting to me is the distinction that's often made with fish. So there are people who will not eat red meat, or indeed any land mammal or any bird, but who have no problem whatsoever with eating fish. So apart from the environmental concern that most fish are swimming in polluted water, and apex predators such as tuna and so on actually accumulate heavy metals like mercury in their system and flesh, leaving all that aside, ethically it seems odd as well, and seems to, and I suppose speaking of the scientific method, I guess we're going right back to the sort of radical doubt of Descartes, and as the foundation of the scientific method, that everything needs to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt as far as possible. But also inherent in that mindset is the duality of the human and non-human animals, and I guess that's why we speak of non-human animals. And in fact, our duality, the two-part split, is really between humans, who historically have seen ourselves as a very special creation descended directly from God, him or herself, and separate and distinct from every other form of creation in religious thinking, or evolved beings in scientific thinking. And we see ourselves as separate and distinct from all other nature. So that's why we refer to human and non-human animals, and that's a useful distinction to make. First of all, because we are all animals, and the distinction between us and all the non-human animals really does exist only in our minds and only in our theoretical frameworks. So I suppose once again, with this sort of thinking is going right back to the Cartesian, and is the ideas of René Descartes that and he actually believed that animals were automata, that they were actually a bundle of flesh and nerves that responded to external stimuli but had no inner life of their own. And he even once wrote that the squealing of a kitten or a puppy as it was being poked or cut or whatever was like the sounds of a malfunctioning machine or clockwork. So it was not a thing, and it was foolish of us as humans to consider that this animal was thinking and feeling and experiencing pain and suffering. So I suppose in answer to that question, while I understand that by the scientific method people do seem to have to prove, and I do believe that the researcher was successful to a scientific standard of proof in proving that the animal actually did feel and experience pain, which to me is no great revelation. But if that's what seems to be required, then I suppose that's something that we have to accept. But I must say it seems to be a rather flawed manner of thinking. But if within empirical science that's what it takes for people to finally accept that yes, in fact, these animals do have rich inner lives, thoughts and feelings, and indeed sentience, then I suppose that's what we'll have to accept. I think we need to move in a very concerted way towards a target of not using live animals at all in scientific research. Now, there will possibly always be a very, very narrow class of areas, particularly in medical research at the higher end, where it will be necessary to use some live subjects. I can't really speak to that, and I must say that I'm a lawyer by training, and not a scientist or medical doctor. However, already at this point in history, there are many forms of animal experimentation that can be readily substituted with either cell cultures or, and an area that's rapidly advancing is computer modeling. And as we've seen a lot of genetic research and work, being done, which is another ethical question altogether. But however, we're also seeing that it is quite possible to get actually far higher quality results than it is to use live animal test subjects. So a good example of this recently in New Zealand is around the testing of psychoactive substances, which has something that has really captured the public imagination or public emotion in no small part because the beagles that are being experimented on are very cute animals, and are animals that people, dogs and cats in particular, are animals that people relate to in a different way. They're companion animals. We see them as animals that somehow should be treated in a different manner, to say in a better manner than say a cow or a pig or a chicken, which many people won't think twice about having on their plate. So leaving that distinction aside though, we should be moving as far as possible towards ending all animal experimentation. And the thing that most researchers will tell you is that they're all curing cancer, but it's actually a really distinct minority of the animals that are being used in research that are actually being used for life-saving human medical research. A very, very large number of them are used for things like testing of cosmetics, testing whether certain substances for consumer use are safe. So the legal highs, the psychoactive substances, is a good example there. And what's more, even from an efficacy viewpoint, separate from the ethical, is that these experiments often don't render very good results anyway, that they can actually get better results from using tissue cell cultures or from computer modelling. So the reason they're used is because they're cheaper. Although I think we'll see a lot of move away from a significant move away from consumer products being tested on animals, as China has recently announced that it will be phasing in 2014, I believe, a ban on or removing the necessity for cosmetic products and consumer products to be tested on live animals.